The flying presidents. What is your feeling of that title for starters?
I think it is a misconception. Yes, he's flying, but are we digging deep to find out why is he flying? Should we even dig deep? No.
No.
Should the government, it's upon the government departments and relevant agencies to tell us what the president has gone to do. It's not upon the president to begin explaining himself. So I think there is a failure in part of the government to tell us why the president has to fly every time he flies.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it important for any president to keep flying all the time?
It is important to keep contact with other heads of states and governments, because we can only create a base for our country. We can only create a foundation of relationships once you get into one-on-one.
Hey there, and welcome to Fanya Mambo Africa. If you know it's Friday, obviously, you know we have a conversation. And today we're having a very interesting conversation, because with me I have a guest who has interests on matters diplomacy, foreign affairs, geopolitics, and everything around that. But our main focus for today is why Kenya's President William Ruto has been referred as the flying president. Gordon Odhiambo, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
How are you?
It's been long.
It's been long. Haven't seen you in such a long time. Physically.
I don't know when we parted ways, but it must be somewhere in 2020. Those are nearly 6 years.
Yes.
But the communication continues.
Yes.
Either way.
Okay, great.
Pleasure.
The flying presidents. What is your feeling of that title for starters?
I think it is a misconception. Yes, he's flying, but are we digging deep to find out why is he flying? Should we even dig deep? No.
No.
Should the government, it's upon the government departments and relevant agencies to tell us what the president has gone to do. It's not upon the president to begin explaining himself. So I think there is a failure in part of the government to tell us why the president has to fly every time he flies.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it important for any president to keep flying all the time?
It is important to keep contact with other heads of states and governments, because we can only create a base for our country. We can only create a foundation of relationships once you get into one-on-one. Diplomacy is both state and personal. So Kenya could be having a good relationship with another country, but the president at that time of that country, your president do not have a personal relationship with that president. So it becomes hard to even make things move that ought to have moved very fast. Sometimes when you sit on a table and you're having coffee and you have that personal relationship, that now you're practicing person-to-person diplomacy, then you get to realize, wow, things can move much more faster at that level. So I think those engagements, those personal relationships are very fundamental in unlocking many things that might have stayed there for ages.
Okay. It will be interesting as we go to understand the ones that we have unlocked, because I was checking and I see the president has done over 85 trips as of June 2025.
Yes.
I don't know this year how many he's done, but I know he's done a Euro tour recently. But before we get there, for Kenyans, in terms of how Kenya's foreign policy is, how would we define, like, how is our foreign policy? Because there are times you speak to people and the conversation online has been, you know what, we're kuja tuongee, like, come we talk. So we really don't understand what our foreign policy stands for.
For the longest, Kenya's foreign policy has been just by word. But by the year 2014, when Ambassador Amina Mohamed was in office, for the first time, Kenya's foreign policy was documented. The 36-page document outlined Kenya's priority in the foreign policy areas, and there were 5 pillars then. Then as new government came in after the Uhuru government, there was need because from time to time the pillars could not change, but the dynamics and practice could vary based on the global geopolitics and interest at the time. So that is why this government saw it wise to rejig, not to discard, but to rejig that foreign policy, make it more vibrant, have a session of paper, take it to parliament, get approved. This, at a point, they even, when the session of paper number 1 of 2025, foreign policy was being developed, I pride myself to have participated, albeit kidogo, but I think it is something that is very fundamental to this country. So our foreign policy is anchored in 5 major principles, and those principles, they are almost the obvious: peace and security, environment, economics. So those are the anchors of our foreign policy. But then how can we transition that document to the understanding of the people? One thing that I think, and I strongly believe, was not done right is it's a document that the people up to now may not know much about, because it wasn't real bottom up. It was nearly top bottom, because at the level of when we were at KICC and when the document was now being not launched, I'm forgetting the term, but that's when the leadership of Ministry of Foreign Affairs was saying, we need this document to go to mashinani. But should that be the case? I think it should come from down there upwards, because we may assume that we don't know what the people want as far as our foreign policy is concerned, but they could be knowing. So I think there was participation, yes, but I don't think it wasn't enough that people get to understand. But again, how often do Kenyans participate even when they're called upon to participate? Sometimes we ignore those calls, but they are very fundamental.
Okay. It's interesting you were saying how it's anchored and how people were not how maybe many Kenyans were not involved in developing it. And I'm looking at it now that you said sometimes even when we are called, which is true, people don't show up. But from a common, just looking at it openly, one of the key issues that has raised eyebrows in the foreign affairs space is our relationship with people from Sudan who've been looked at as people who've caused genocide in that space. So, and they have been allowed to host meetings in the same KICC. When you see such things happening, then what does our foreign policy say about that?
Kenya is an anchor state as far as peace and security is concerned in the region. And being an anchor state, it means you have a lot to take care about. Kenya is looked at globally as a country where if you need peace within the Great Lakes region, the entire Great Lakes region, the first point of call will be Kenya. Let me take you back to 1970s when Kenya began to negotiate with the Southerners in South Sudan. When Sudan was still one, there were the Southern Sudan then and the North. So when the Southerners went up in arms in the early 70s, they began in the 50s, but now when it intensified in the 70s, President Daniel Arap Moi by then commissioned Ambassador Daniel Rachonyomboya, retired now, to begin negotiating, to talk to the Southerners. Because you see, there's so much similarities between Kenyans and South Sudanese. In fact, there's a time Moi used to go to South Sudan, and he used to speak in pure Kalenjin. To the people there. Today, if I go to South Sudan, I would speak in pure Luo, and the Anuak there, the Shiluk there would speak back to me in the very language. So at that point, Kenya was at a position to negotiate, and it brought a lot of problems with Sudan. Sudan had even to declare our ambassador then, Daniel Rachonyomboya, as persona non grata, Rachunimboya to come back home. For over decades, over a decade or two, we did not have an ambassador in Sudan. That's something people did not know.
Okay.
So at that point, Kenya did not stop hosting Southerners, the Garangs of this world. Did you know that John Garang, at some point, lived and even taught students here in Kenya as a teacher in the then Central Province?
Learning that now.
Yes, he was hosted here in Kenya amongst other leaders of the then SPLA in southern Sudan. So I find it a bit uninformed opinion for Kenyans to begin raising their hands and saying, this is not right, why are these guys here? No. Why did we succeed in bringing peace and tranquility in South Sudan? Why did Kenya succeed in ensuring that there is a peaceful referendum and eventual independence in South Sudan? Because Kenya being an anchor state in peace and security, we knew very well, if we let this down, then it's us on the verge. How? At that time, many South Sudanese were crossing over to Turkana.
Yeah.
Kakuma was one of the biggest camps, and Dadaab. So they were crossing over into Kenya. And who had the burden of taking care of these people?
Of course,
It's
us.
of course us.
Yeah.
Do we want to see that over and over again? No. So Kenya managed to walk South Sudan and Sudan in these peace agreements over the years till 2005, when eventually it was signed at Nyayo Stadium. President Kibaki there, President Omar al-Bashir, the late John Garang was there. Now, it had been taken over by General Sumbewo Zaras that negotiated that peace to the end. Though, yes, with the help of the Troika, the Norways, the Americans, the UKs. So they came in and helped that. Why am I giving that history and analogy? It's because now we are in Sudan.
Yeah.
These guys are in crisis. They have seen it best to come here and have a base. The best thing Kenya would have done is to hold them here.
Wait, aren't they the ones creating a crisis?
Oh, yes.
So that they can take
yes.
over again.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And then at the same time, they've been killing people.
Now.
So now when Kenya sets in and looks like we are supporting the killers, what does that mean in terms of our rating as a diplomatic anchor, so to say?
Now, by the time this was happening, those guys, you remember the killing aspect of it, came so big and loud after they left Kenya. You remember the video that was going viral?
Yes, there was that, yes.
That happened after they left Kenya. Why am I saying we ought to have held those guys here and told them, now, this is your base, sit here. And once they are here, we can now go back. We open the back channels of communication with the then government there, led by Burhan. You tell them, if we leave these guys, they will come there and wreak havoc. So let's hold them here. Let's have a conversation. Now, because Kenyans made a lot of noise, and the government, I think, gave in that noise, they went back. What was the next thing? They began killing. So would they have done so when they were here? No. What happened in South Sudan back then with Anyanya 1, when the uprising began, is that there were serious killings. So the moment their leaders are here, you don't openly say you have them in detention, kind of, but they can't leave your country. So they don't have the leverage to operate the way they want. And you open back channels, you begin the communication. We would have helped Sudan by containing the guys here, by beginning conversation, even if those conversations were to be held in Ethiopia or any other country. But once they need to go to the conversation tables, they are flown from here to the conversation table, flown back. Then we have stability back there. Government in exiles is not something new in this world. In fact, Poland had a government in exile from 1945 thereabout to 1991. And they went back. Poland.
That's many years.
Yes. From around 1945, during the Second World War, to 1991, after the fall of USSR. We've had government, France has had a government in exile. So we've had governments in exile. So once you have what they call as government in exile, it's not really a government, because a government, if they can't collect taxes, they can't administer in their country. There's absolutely nothing they are going to do there. It's the other faction that is running the government. So this one simply becomes a pressure group. So that pressure group back at home, you would have long conversations, maybe 4, 5, even 10 years, so that we can have proper conversations and even elections back there. Did you know there's a time in this country where Kenya had 3 governments? We had the Kenyan government here in Nairobi. We had the Somali government here in Nairobi. We had the South Sudan government here in Nairobi. At one point, Kenya was hosting 2 foreign governments here, while back in their home countries, there were total wars. So I think...
So is that a good thing or a bad thing, usually?
It's a good thing, because you as a country that is hosting all these people, you are providing a platform for conversations. If you leave them, they go there, who are they answerable to? They're not answerable to anyone.
So when you hold them here, do they become answerable to you?
They become answerable to you. Now, you see, it's like your own child. Once this child is in your compound, your home, you have power over him or her. But once they leave, they go out there. Do you know what they're doing? You don't. Yeah. So I think we messed up by allowing these people to go back. We would have held them here. Okay. There are positions that governments must take, irrespective of noise.
Okay. I think the bigger concern has been knowing very well what is happening. I mean, it's good you've given the background of that, but seeing that State House lays a red carpet for one of these generals.
Yes.
And they meet with the president, our own president. Shouldn't we question, because how we know it, that's why we have a foreign affairs ministry. And we have actually the prime CS as the lead. Isn't it supposed to be this CS pushing this, instead of having our president being seen with someone who's causing genocide in their own country and very comfortable at it while at that? Well,
the genocide claims actually came after we made noise and let these people go.
Even before then, there were killings.
Even before then, yes, there were drones flying over, people being bombed, people dying, but it wasn't very massive. It became massive when we made noise and they went. But again, there could have been a miscalculation in how to handle the diplomatic aspect of it in terms of laying the red carpets and all that, because it communicates a lot. There could have been a misunderstanding a bit. But remember, I think...
So who causes the misunderstanding, for instance?
Even those who did that must have taken a script from the South Sudan generals. You remember when the South Sudan generals had a problem there, and that was 2015, when there was the fight that broke in 2013 went over to 2015 in J1, South Sudan. When those generals came here and were hosted in State House, you remember that scene? It caused a lot of trouble between Kenya and South Sudan. But I'm tempted to believe that because some of these things are not done directly by the president, he's only briefed that these people, this is what is happening, this is, you need to meet blah, blah on this particular day and all that. And if his diary allows, then he goes ahead to meet them. But now, where do they get this kind of scripts? I think they are relying on past events. How was it done back then with the other generals? And some of the things we do in this country, we must always endeavor to do it right. Because you do it today and you get it wrong. Tomorrow the same script will be used. And whoever will be using that script will use it without malice. But this has been the practice. So they think it has been the practice and it is good. But probably there was a mishap or a misunderstanding somewhere.
But is there no standard operating procedures? Especially, I mean, I have spoken to so many people and they praise our foreign affairs and the diplomats that are in that ministry. Then is there no SOPs, or have we taken politics into the diplomatic world? Then we are seeing these mishaps.
Diplomacy is politics that is not on the podium. Diplomacy is the background politics of it. And I want to believe that because I have not spoken to any government official on that bit, but from the face value, there was a miscalculation that we ought to have gotten right. And that miscalculation, I think, led to the hue and cry out there that, again, the government gave in. So if we only handled it right from point one, even if Kenyans made noise about these guys being in the country and government explained why, then people would have understood. I think the government aspect of explaining some of these things is what is missing. But it's not necessarily that they are wrong. They only need to explain some of the things they are doing so that the people get to understand and appreciate.
Okay. Interesting perspective. Just the other day, the president, people were complaining because he was, I think it's before South Africa then, G7 travel. Yeah. And when he came back, he came declaring that he's the number one ambassador or something.
Number one Kenyan diplomat.
Number one Kenyan diplomat. Is that it? Should that be the it?
Yes, the president is the country's number one diplomat, then followed by the other cadres. So anywhere in the world, be it in the US, be it in Russia or China or wherever, president or the head of state and government is the country's number one chief diplomat.
Why do you think he has to remind us that?
I think because those who are supposed to tell us are not telling us. So the president is at pain at times explaining some of these things. And many a times, not once, not twice, he has said the communication team is letting him down. Have you heard him say so? Yes, he has said it over and over again. So I think anyone everywhere who is in the communication, and also the government spokesperson, ought to be telling Kenyans. You remember, and I will say this without mincing words, I think the very last government spokesperson we had in this country was Alfred Mutua.
What are you saying about Isaac and his assistant, Gabriel Muthuma? I'm just asking, because they are the current.
How many times do we see Isaac Mwaura telling us, explaining to us the government position? How many times? When did you see Isaac Mwaura explain a government position, take a government position, explain? When did he sit down with the Kenyan media and podcasters and explaining government positions on some of these issues? I don't remember when. Maybe I don't have a TV and I don't watch internet.
Okay. Very, very friendly jab right there. But on the real, our president is always going out, even for some things which we feel the Prime CS, who's also the Foreign Affairs Minister, would have represented well. Does he want to be a president, or does he want to be a CS for Foreign Affairs?
I think that is where we missed the mark. Because even, I think today or tomorrow, this week, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, who is also the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Foreign Affairs, should be somewhere in, is it Korea or maybe Seoul? He's there to do his mandate, to execute his mandate. The president is not there. He's been up and about in many countries where the president has not been. There are places where the president go because it's head of state to head of state, or head of government to head of state conversation, where they need to broker some of these conversations. I don't like the term deal, but broker some of these deals, then let now ministers and ambassadors follow suit in once at that top level is done. Now cascading it downwards, now these other guys can take charge. And if you check some of the trips that the head of state has been having, I think they're in the best interest of this country. I will, if you allow, we'll just look at a few of them.
I will start with G7. It's the most recent. I'm sure a lot of people remember.
The most recent.
Yeah.
Very good.
What benefits are we getting from that meeting?
Now, you had there was sideline conversations, and there was very minimal communication from the government as far as the sideline conversations went, where the president had a conversation with the World Bank president, AJ Banga, on some of these things he has always been championing. What are they? Debt restructuring. And in that conversation, the sideline conversation, the World Bank president, Kenyan president, US president, and Macron, they said, well, it is time we look into this thing, because the African conversation is not just African conversation, it is our conversation, because they have also realized there is that reawakening in Africa that if they don't listen to Africa, then Africa will take a trajectory that may cripple their economies in one way or another. So that is a conversation that took center stage in the sidelines with the government of Kenya president and the other heads of states and World Bank president. And I think we hope to see the fruits to it very soon. So in every...
When you say very soon, now we Kenyans are used to promises that are never fulfilled. And especially with those bilateral agreements, is there usually like a timeline of how we can see that? Because like debt, as you've stated, is something that is hurting the country to date.
Well, again, I want to give you a very quick history of G7 and Africa. By the year 2000, when G7 summit was held in Takanawa, Japan, what happened at that point was Africa was choking in debt to a tune of 40 billion US dollars. So what happened? Those guys sat down, then presidents there, told them, African presidents, there were like 7 heads of states of government from Africa that attended, told them, this debt issue is bad on us. We can't develop no proper schools, no proper infrastructure, health and all that. We are using all our taxes, revenues to pay this debt. So they decided, let us do away with this debt. Let us cancel African debt and other global South countries. So they canceled debt worth 40 billion US dollars. That is the moment we began to see a lot of infrastructure and service provision in Africa in terms of building of schools, building of hospitals, health system began to improve. At that point, after this debt cancellation was done, to a tune of 40 billion. Then fast forward to 2005. Still in 2000, there was serious HIV/AIDS ravaging this part of the world, and up to around 20 million Africans who were accounted for every year to be succumbing to HIV virus. So these guys sat down and said, hey, we cannot let this happen. Our country's guys are dying. Please find a solution. And that is when, because of the economic power they have, and they see it even in the veto, some of them, by then, Russia was still there, that sits in very crucial positions at the UN. So they took this to the UN. That's when UN aid was brought up. It was funded. That is when George W. Bush then decided, well, let us have a fund to fight this. That's when he went and launched PEPFAR. So some of these G7 summits, they are not just about the moment. They're about the historical ties that have helped turn around African situations, and also what we can get out of it. You remember when this G7 summit began, the first meeting they held, there were 3 declarations that were made, and the communique was out. First declaration was on fight against Ebola. Second declaration, Ebola and other tropical viruses and all that. The second declaration was on the fight against cancer, which is a big menace in Africa and the rest of the world. The third declaration was on financial inclusion. And they realized, well, this is a problem. Africa has been crying about this thing. Why don't we look into it? So they said, we are undertaking to look into it, that we have to restructure our financial institution to suit the moment. Because when these financial institutions were initiated, Africa was not in the picture. Actually, they were not even initiated for Africa's benefit. Yeah. They were there to rebuild the already broken Europe. So we were not in the picture. So why must we be subjected to loans that we pay at higher rate than everyone else, whereas we contribute? We might not be contribute as much as other global powers, but why are we subjected to higher rates than other people? So those are some of the things that were on the table, and I think it is only good enough. Diplomacy is silent. The results are loud, sometimes for those who care to know.
Diplomacy by Trump is aggressive. It's not silent.
How beneficial has it been to Africa?
Well, he's not working for Africa.
But again, diplomacy in its sense is very silent. Some of these things that are done in very silent ways that you may never even get to know about them. And because the nature of Trump has broken so many ranks within diplomacy here, so many protocols. You know, diplomacy in its traditional practice would be a communication is made there. It is written, sealed, put in a diplomatic bag, sent to Kenya. If Kenya has to respond, it will respond, put in a diplomatic bag, sent back. So that is not where we are. Today, public diplomacy has taken over, and we are seeing all manner of kind of diplomacy practicing that we are may not be accustomed to.
Yeah. Okay. That's it's good we are actually, because I'm sure not many people saw the communique that came from that.
Yes.
But I think for most, what was picked was usually the Ebola, because it was a trending thing in the country. I'll take you back to Germany.
Yes.
The president went to Germany. Was it last year?
It was 2025.
Yes, last year.
Yes.
And in that meeting, he promised at least 250,000 jobs. To date, how many jobs have Kenyans gotten, to be very sincere?
Now, very interesting. Before the president went to Germany, we had German Chancellor, come to Kenya. You remember?
Yes.
And these conversations had begun. So why were we beginning these conversations? Because the median age of Germans is around 44. The median age of Kenyan, Kenyans, those who went to mathematics class know median. And yes. So the median age of Kenya is 19.
Yes.
So there is manpower. Kenya is blessed with manpower.
Yeah.
Do you know Kenya releases up to around 1 million young people into the job market every single year? So where are these people going to go? So the government said, well, we may not be able to create opportunities for 1 million Kenyans every year. Where else can we get opportunities? So there are opportunities abroad. Germany is one of them. So they began these conversations with Germany, and Germany accepted to do what? To change their immigration laws to allow to give way. Yes, they changed their immigration laws. Yes, Germany changed its immigration laws.
That's confirmed.
Yes. Change its immigration laws, the Immigration Act, to allow people go to their country in a manner that is not so stringent. Germany is part of EU.
Yes.
For you must look for Schengen visa and all that. For you to go to Germany today, you don't necessarily need the Schengen visa. How do they call it? But let's just call it the German visa. There's the term, the German language, how it is called. So you just need to get that German visa because you are going there to work, or you are going to study there, work there. So you are not going to tour Europe. You're only going to work. So that was allowed in their Immigration Act, which they passed. Now, the 250, how is it coming? Germany needs a workforce of up to 250,000 people and probably beyond every year. And that workforce is quota free. What do I mean by quota free? If you are Kenya, I am Uganda, the gentleman there is Tanzania. It is not pegged that Kenya, you can only give us 10,000, or Uganda, you can only give us 20,000. It is quota free, meaning if there are 250,000 jobs, anyone with the skills that is required, with the qualifications that are required, can grab those jobs. So it doesn't matter whether all Kenyans, Kenya just produces 250 people who are needed in 1 year at a go. It doesn't matter. They will go, so long as they meet the requisite qualifications. So when the president said this, he was not wrong, because he believes Kenya has the right qualification and the manpower to go there. But now, BBC misreported.
Hey, why is it that it's always misquoted?
No, it was not.
Misreported?
It was BBC said in a tweet that 250,000 Kenyans begin their journey to
Germany.
To Germany.
Yes.
But is it true that 250,000 Kenyans began their journey to Germany? No. Because the fact that it is quota free, it doesn't mean all of them are for you unless you meet the requisite qualifications. So the Ministry of Interior, while in German, while responded to the tweet by BBC. They highlighted and responded to it and said, this is not true, because this thing is quota free and anyone who meets the qualification, regardless of which country, will be allowed in. So if Kenya can produce 250,000, what is wrong with that?
So can we know the numbers?
I think we can know the numbers.
How and when? I mean, it's almost a year since he left Germany. Well, it would be important to check accountability.
Actually, if there's something I follow keenly, is these things to do with foreign and diplomacy. Because if you check DW, the German media house, you'll realize that even this year, they were doing recruitment. Here in Kenya, the German industries were doing recruitment here. And that time, that particular one, which was covered by DW, was done. Who was the person who was in charge of the recruitment was also Kenyan, who works in German. How many people applied? Over 340 young Kenyans applied. First qualification, basic German language. How many people passed that basic qualification? Around 30-something people. And because they had the requisite qualifications, many of them were being recruited for the hotel industry. They were picked. They went to Germany. That is just one aspect. And they are in all manner of spaces, be it in the medicine, be it in the home care, be it in the truck driving, the transport industry. So you can imagine just one sector in January alone picked over 30 people, young Kenyans. That is something you can confirm by going to DW's YouTube channel. So this thing is real. I think if you go to the ministry, the Department of Diaspora, they must be having clear data of how many Kenyans are going to Germany every single year, which is very impressive.
There's a time I saw, that's interesting, but there's a time I saw the president say he approached these ministries and could not get data. So I don't even know as of now whether it's a clip online of him saying that he was asking, like, how many Kenyans do we have in Qatar? The ministry cannot account.
Now, you see, again, that is a failure by maybe various departments, because you can't tell me that you don't know how many Kenyans leave this country. You may not know how many Kenyans are in Qatar specifically, because today, Sarah, you may leave Kenya, go to Qatar. But while in Qatar, you get a connection, another gig to maybe Indonesia. You go to Indonesia. The government here may just account for you being where?
Yeah.
In Qatar. But again, that is a failure. They should be checks and balances to ensure that the immigration department knows how many Kenyans have left toward destinations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's come back to Africa. This actually just goes to our immediate neighbors.
Neighbor.
Yes, and this week we've seen our very own senior counsel, Martha Karua, was deported and denied entry into Uganda, where she was going to represent Kizza Besigye and I forget the name of Lu, the other guy.
Yeah, yes.
And we have an EAC treaty which allows you to go to any of these countries. This is not the first time. We saw her again deported because of going to Tanzania last year. Why do we have an EAC treaty that is very selective on who goes to which country?
Very good. And I think it boils down now to our politics. What kind of people do we send to East African Legislative Assembly? And what laws do they even make? I think it boils down there. Let us stop the nonsense of favoritism that this person helped me in my campaign. When it comes to work, campaigns is one thing. But when it comes to work, please pick people who can do the job. Just pick individuals who can do the what? The job. So when we pick our relatives, our friends to go and legislate in East Africa, when all these things are happening, where is even the legislative arm of East Africa? Do we see them speaking? Because that is the most common thing that unites all the East African countries. Do we even see them speaking? Do they even ever address some of these ills? Because, again, the treatment of Martha Karua, it could be Martha Karua today, but tomorrow it will be someone else. So let us not see it as Martha Karua. If someone has maybe differences with Martha Karua, let them not feel that, see, that is Martha. No, she's Kenyan. Yes, and she has served at topmost. Probably, who knows, Martha could have served as even the president of this country.
Yeah.
If at all, Azimio won last elections. So the way we treat East African community members matters a lot. I may not go into the nitty-gritties of Uganda and as to why they had to, because Martha confessed that there was a communique to stop her from going in without explanation. So I think soon Uganda should be able to communicate clearly that these are the reasons behind this. And they should be convincing reasons to the community for the sake of the community.
And in such a scenario, what's the role of our Foreign Affairs Ministry? Because that's our citizen. And I tend to imagine first is our pride as a citizen. So anyone who's harassed and belongs to us should be we should all be at the forefront in.
Yes.
Because up to now, Musalia Mudavadi, I don't think has issued a statement, or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
You remember when Kenyans had a problem, was it in Uganda and Tanzania some time back? The ministry came out clearly and spoke.
And that was way after a while.
Yes. So this, it happened so quick and very fast that Martha Karua was put on a flight back home. So even before I want to believe whenever something happens or something of that nature happens, there's a lot of back-end communications that go on that we may never come to know about. Back and forth communications in the back channel, because diplomacy is very silent in its practice. So
does it help when it stays silent when your own citizen is being harassed? And I'm asking this in this sense. If Martha that was on Sunday. Was it Sunday or Monday?
It was on Monday.
Since Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, government has not even condemned the act. Or maybe just Foreign Affairs.
I'm not sure if the Kenyan government has or has not condemned the act. But I think
Pierre Singwe would post it on his Twitter. He posts everything. So
I strongly believe that there are back-end communications to this, because it cannot go. No government will allow such a thing to go without having communications about it. Because if it happens to your senior citizen like Martha Karua, then chances are it could happen to any other person.
Yeah.
So one major thing that I know the government will always do is to have diplomatic back-end communications, which we may not know. Yes, we may not know. But if you walk to the ministry today, if you talk to them, they will tell you this is the kind of communication we've had since this thing happened.
But let me ask you, what determines what they communicate to the public and what they determine as secret? Because this thing happened in public. It played in the public. Her party tweeted about it. We saw her at the airport giving a speech. So when do you separate, diplomatically, when do you separate the public knowing what is happening? Maybe not the nitty-gritties, but just something, assurance to your citizens.
One, the government can't also communicate. It appears like I'm talking for the government.
No, we're just looking at it critically,
yes,
on where
the government can't communicate based on one side. At least I expect the government, necessary agencies, to talk to Martha Karua to get more information, because even according to her, she left her phones there.
Yeah.
And that is huge data that the government cannot just let go. Martha Karua has been a senior citizen in this country, senior government officer, that our phones contains serious data that may not just be let go like that. So I want to believe that the government, the best thing to do is to ensure that they get the real story from Martha Karua, with the necessary agencies, real story from Martha Karua, and their counterparts on the other side. The immigration, even before you go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the immigration department, what might have been the problem there? So they get it from the immigration department. On the other side, then Foreign Affairs get, because you see that communication from the immigration will now be cascaded upwards to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So even if Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in Kenya were to communicate, they may not communicate because they do not have information. Why? Because what happened at the airport is squarely under the immigration department. And then immigration department does not report to the Foreign Affairs. Immigration department reports to the Ministry of Interior and Security. So they will take their report, take it to the Ministry of Security or Interior. Then from there, the relevant now ministries will have horizontal communication, now ministry to ministry. Now that Ministry of Foreign Affairs there will know. Kenya here will want to know. Ministry of Foreign Affairs may be interested, but first communication has to come from the immigration department that reports where? Straight to Interior. So again, till it goes to Interior, then ministry to ministry, horizontal, now communicate. So it might take a little longer because, again, communications in government is not like, it's not by word of mouth, but it has to follow particular channels and protocols so that even in the next time, there is something that can be followed up on. Yes.
Okay. Very interesting. Before I leave East Africa, I think we're in June, somewhere I think in March, our president went to Tanzania when there was that whole affair of having Dangote put up a refinery and said that there were talks and it was to be put in Tanzania. And then the president of Tanzania says, I have no idea such a thing happened.
Now that was a good diplomatic smackdown, if you want to call it. To me there, sitting from my house watching that thing, the president played very smart. And what is the end result? It's coming to Kenya. He didn't, you see, again, Kenya is viewed as very aggressive in the area. Today, if you go to Tanzania, they will not have a problem with you. But there is that, Kenya. Mm-hmm. There is that aggressiveness they see in you even without you saying or reacting to anything. So I think that was a kind of a chess being played. And the president did it in a manner that it forced the Tanzanian government to say, we don't know about it. And what was the next communication? If you want to know, it was all diplomatic and political chess game. The next thing is Aliko Dangote saying, by the way, Tanzania, it is not very viable. And here, because if Dangote had said prior that it is, if President William Ruto had said that we need it in Kenya, what would have been the communication perception? They want everything for themselves while it is for East Africa. So first, push the queen mother to the corner and say, hey, mimi sijui kitu kama hiyo, mbona unasema yale ambayo sisi hatujazungumza? Then the money man comes and say, you know what? I don't see Tanzania being very viable. So I want you to imagine into the reverse, where the money man is saying Tanzania is not viable, or President William Ruto is saying, bring it to Kenya. Then the money man says, Tanzania is not viable, let's take it to Kenya. So it was done from back to the frontal, instead of frontal back frontal, in a manner that it is now benefiting Kenya. Because now he said he's going to do it here in Kenya, and they are going to do it big. So is it a benefit to us?
Well, eventually, yes.
Yes, it's a benefit to us as a country. But again, that kind of chess game had to be played, if you ask me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I think the over 80, how, I don't know now, they must be, if 84 was last year. This year, I think he's traveled a lot, more than maybe 15. I'm not certain about this year. When you see those, let's give and take, maybe 95 trips overseas, which ones would you quote as the tangible benefits that Kenya has gotten from across these over 40 countries? UAE,
German.
What have we gotten with UAE?
Well,
besides being accused by the region that we are conduits of illegal gold. I mean, these are conversations that has been talked by politicians, so I'm just quoting.
Yeah, I know. I think I've also seen them online. But again, politicians will be politicians. They will, if I am a politician today, I would say anything that will draw you and other voters towards my side. But now, UAE. There's an agreement between Kenya and UAE called CEPA, C-E-P-A, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, that was signed somewhere early 2025. The president went to UAE, I think, once or twice, but there was that travel to UAE. So what does this CEPA really entails? CEPA, number one thing, is that Kenya exports meat to UAE. Generally, UAE imports meat worth $2.1 billion a year. Of that, $1.2 billion worth of meat comes from one country called Brazil. UAE is here. They import from where? Brazil. Kenya exports meat in a volume of 74 to 80 million a year to UAE. Very minimal. Yeah. To me, it is very minimal. But why is it 74 to 80 million a year? What kind of meat are we exporting? Or what kind of meat do they want that we don't export? So in their quest, just before this CEPA was concluded, they realized, number one, those guys, the meat they consume a lot is the small animal. That is the goat and sheep. Because majorly now, I think chicken they produce a lot. So goat and sheep is what they consume a lot. So this goat and sheep, what quality or quantity do they need? Quality do they need that we don't have? We realized that in Kenya, even the treatment of these animals was not to the standard that is required internationally. Then we do not have huge ranches like other people that we can do what? We can rely on for meat exportation. So what happens next is that you and I, who are small-scale farmers, you have 50 goats, 20 sheep, I have my 30, whatever. Now, the government, through its agricultural officers, will ensure that each and every farmer, and that is why farmers are being registered across the country. So long as you're a farmer, you should register so that the government gets to know Sarah is a farmer, she has this number of animals. There is that agricultural officer who will be attending to your animals. Because once you begin now the business of export, Someone has to take care of the lives, the health, and all that.
Yeah.
There is this thing called the County Aggregation Industrial Parks, which were launched by Moses Kuria countrywide.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yes.
They are in all 47 counties. What are they supposed to do? They're supposed to cut down middlemen completely. Because if you have your 100 goods, if I am a middleman, I will come to you, buy them at throwaway price, go and sell them at high price. Who makes the money? So those county aggregation industrial parks are supposed to cut on middlemen, where you and I can now take our animals after the inspection and all that, which is required. Now, our animals can be now taken to the industrial parks for slaughter, for what? Now they can export that meat directly. And they're not just exporting meat. Remember, there is the leather aspect, there is the hide and skin that is there. So they are not just buying your animal for meat, but they're also buying your animal for the hide and skin. So that you can export this meat can be exported and you are paid. Just the same way tea and coffee works. So they want to replicate the same thing across the country through this county aggregation industrial parks. That is one aspect that we do not know about this.
Okay.
Yes. So to me, that aspect, the SEPA agreement, is one of the most important agreements that has turned around or is going to turn around our country, and our farmers, small-scale farmers, will now benefit directly.
Okay.
Yes.
That's nice. That's for UAE.
Yes.
There's like 40 other countries.
Yes.
I mean, we touched on Germany.
We've touched on Germany.
Yes.
We've touched
Is there
on
any
UAE.
other one that is big?
Let's take the recent one where I went to Helsinki, Finland.
Finland.
Yes. Today, this podcast is going online using data. Who provides data in this country? Our telcos, right?
Yeah.
Where do they get that data from? Because they are not the original owners of that data. They get this data from Nokia, from Ericsson, and Huawei. So those are the main three data service providers in Kenya. Nokia and Ericsson are from which country? From Finland. They are not from any other country. They are headquartered in Finland. So one of the things that the president was there to do, among many others, is how can we lower the price of data? Because he has realized that Kenyan young population are either working online or creating opportunities online. But the price of data in this country is so much. Yes, because if you buy data for probably 1,000, it might not last if you are doing a lot of work online. It might not last for long. Will you be able to buy that data for 1,000 almost every day or after every week? No. So how then can we lower this? So that is one of the most important things that the president went to do in Finland, Helsinki, so that we can have those two conglomerates, the Nokia and the Ericsson. We can have a conversation on how do we lower this down. How can we have more cables, undersea cables to Kenya, so that the price of data, because your telcos here in Kenya will give you that data based on how they also get it, because they also need to make a profit. So they look at their profit margins and then they realize, I can't give this maybe 2 GB at this price because then I will make no business. But if the prices from the owners are lowered based on the infrastructure that is laid, because again, it depends on the infrastructure. So that is why the government is looking at over 5 billion infrastructure project in data itself, so that the prices can come down, we can make money online, even if you are not employed by anyone, but you employ yourself, you content create, you generate money for you and for your family.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not all been tours and travel.
No. It's not tours and travels as people may want to think.
But let me ask you, what kind of travel does a president need? You remember, was it like 3 weeks? Where was he going when there was the private jet story that had had a massage parlor for ladies from Seychelles? I don't know what. No, I'm just saying, I'm quoting what was quoted. And before that, if you remember, there's another story where it was a private jet. Yes, and then it became, I was given by my friends after a lot of uproar from the public. And we were also questioning now, if your friends can give you a private jet, how safe are we? Because your friends are not the country's friends necessarily when they start demanding needs. Yeah.
Air Force One was retired the other day.
Yes.
The blue.
Oh, they said it's under repair. Is it retirement under repair?
It is retired officially.
So we need a new plane.
Air Force One for US.
Oh, for the US one,
yes. Air Force One was retired.
Yes.
I think 4 or 5 days ago.
Yeah.
Officially. Then we have a new Air Force One. So when Uncle Sam was asked, so where did this one? It has been donated by our friends in the Middle East. And that is also diplomacy. It might be having its fair share of backlash, but it is also part and parcel of diplomacy in terms of how do you engage people? Can people trust you to even give you something when you need it and your country may be having very tight fiscal space? And I think I don't see a very big problem in it. The only thing is, how then do we communicate that? Because
what are the risks? I'm looking at it in this sense. If they are his friends, yes, we don't dispute. And I mean, he's a president. He's allowed to have friends across.
Yes.
If those same friends now want a certain deal, how will you say no? And maybe for the country, it is not prudent to have them as business partners for the country, not for your personal interests.
And that is why we have what is the name? There is this kind of procurement process that it's by law. Yes, the government can do direct procurement under certain circumstances, but under normal circumstances, the procurement should go through the due process so that you eliminate possible underground deals that are there. These things exist globally, but there are laws to try and curb them. There are risks, as you say. There could be those risks, I don't deny. But how then do we handle such things when they come up? How then do we handle them moving forward into the future? Because if it happens today, what laws should we put in place that may stop them? Because, as you say, yes, tomorrow it will not be President William Ruto. It will be a different president. And you don't know who is gifting you what.
Yeah.
You're president, you're not a president for yourself. You're a president for this country. You are a property of the nation.
Yeah.
You'll stop being yourself. So if people gift you, if someone gives you gifts, let's say the house of, the Alfa house, gives Alfa house Lexus, then
maybe they should try.
I was waiting for that. So if friends of Alfa house gifts you Lexus, it's a good thing. But what are the laws and regulations that should guide any gifts that come to Alfa house and to what magnitude? Because again, today they will gift you. Tomorrow it's Gordon who is sitting there.
Yeah.
If they gift Gordon and they have ill intentions, what happens? So I think there should be guidelines, regulations on how some of these massive gifts can be received and under what circumstances.
Also, in the same breath, did he think through his own security, being our property? He's our president.
I think
if the worst happens?
There are people who are mandated to think through the president's security, not even by himself. You see, he may think for himself and think in this particular direction, but there are people mandated to think about the president's security. And he cannot go any direction that the security apparatus and the intelligence system around him have any single doubt, even as small as the mustard seed doubt. If the intelligence operators in this country think otherwise, they will simply turn his head, face the other direction, and they will not explain, because they know once anything goes wrong with the president, they are in for it. So I think even for him to receive that particular gift, the security and the intelligence of this country must have thought through it. You can't wake up and do such a thing.
Okay. US and our relations.
Yes.
How are we doing with President Trump?
We are doing fantastically well. I thought we were going to do bad. Yes.
What makes you say so?
We are doing well because one thing that really helps us is our geopolitical location. Because today, in the entire Great Lakes region and Sub-Sahara, it is much more easier to access the entire Sub-Sahara and the Great Lakes region via Kenya.
Yes.
And Kenya is so strategic that no one can ignore Kenya when it comes to matters terrorism, fight against terrorism. And that is why we cannot be off the radar of the US. That is why they opted to have us as a non-NATO ally. In that matrix, what does it come with? It comes with enhanced security, enhanced intelligence sharing. That's why you can be sure that for the longest in this country, we've not had terror attacks. But I can tell you, there have been numerous thwarted terror attempts. Numerous have been thwarted. Why? Because of the enhanced intelligence sharing. Being a member of the non-major NATO ally, it comes at a cost. And that cost may not just be carried by Kenya. It has to be shared by us and them. And that's why today, even in the tourism sector, you've seen there is a spike, a rise in tourism sector. Why? Because there is that assurity that, well, Kenya is stable security-wise. Kenya is stable politically. We've had our fair share of back and forth politically. But one beautiful thing with this country that even young people know, we may have our disagreements on Monday. But when we agree that they are going to be resolved, or we reach an agreement by that Monday evening, tomorrow things operate like there was never a thing in this country.
Yeah.
Yes. And many people, there's a time I was in Accra, and some guy from Ivory Coast asked me, you people, we take a lot of interest in Kenya. Sometimes we think Kenya is going to burn down. Then a day later, it's like nothing really happened. I told him, that is us. We know what we want. So when we are pushing for what we want, we go for it. Once we get it, or we are certain we are going to get it, there's no need of pushing further. We stop and we go back to our other things. So Kenya is so strategic and so interesting, both politically, security-wise, and in terms of environmental, the climate change aspect, that we do not want to just gamble around.
Okay.
And US, knowing that too well, will do everything. And they have their investments here in Kenya. Yeah. So with their investments here in Kenya, they would not wish to have insecurity around. US is going to invest over some hundreds of billions of dollars in the country, some billions of dollars. I can't just remember the exact figures. But during that conversation, there are US companies that are supposed to invest here. Some of them have already been allocated parcels of land where to invest in. So it's a good thing for us. And as I said, in the space of diplomacy, it is so quiet. But the only mistake is that we don't have follow-up communications. Follow-up communication. Do you know that almost in every agreement Kenya makes with other country, MPs or the committee, before it is approved in Parliament, committee members normally say that the relevant government agency or department must report to Parliament after every 1 year after, like we've agreed today, 1 year later, the government agencies, relevant government agencies and departments should report to Parliament and tell them, we had this agreement, this is the progress. So they should report the progress back to Parliament. Does Parliament follow up to see the progress?
The Parliament we have now?
Or even the one we had then?
That's very interesting.
Yes, and you see, the SEPA was talking about, people sometimes blame our members of Parliament, but did you know that that committee, the Committee on Trade, which was then chaired by Bernard Shinali, ensured that they had that clause there that, well, you have to report to us how the progress of this. They also cut off some of the things that they felt were not necessary and were going to infringe on Kenyans' rights. Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. You've mentioned and it crossed my mind about the US investments in Kenya, and I remembered we were promised a data center in this country, but then again, we want a data center to run when we only produce 3,000 megawatts for a country, and essentially a data center needs about 10,000 to run. So, sometimes when we go for this, are we even serious if we're not fixing? Because we're going for it. Of course, the US will buy it, but when they come and realize you only have 3,000 megawatts,
so meaning if you switch on data center like this,
gone. Blackouts.
It will not go on,
it won't even.
But even the whole country will go.
Yeah.
So what's happening with the data center? We should be having that because it is a big thing.
Yes.
It's for our benefit.
That's true.
But what happens? We had a nuclear power plant that was supposed to be put up in Kwale. The guys from Kwale refused.
For a reason?
Yes, they refused.
Yes.
But then the former Prime Minister, the late Raila Odinga, told the government, this thing is good. I don't think those people really understood what it means. How many kilometers should it be away from
people,
residentials or people?
Yeah.
5 kilometers radius. So, county government of Siaya, where Raila came from, he talked to the county government and they said, well, there's a place it can be. 5 kilometers radius, those who are there can be relocated. Well, let's put it up. So the government agreed, with the help of Raila then, to put it up in Siaya. I do not know the progress.
It is not good progress. I had the Siaya governor here a few weeks ago, James Orengo, and I asked that and he said, it's talks happening. So there's nothing much to report.
So I do not know the progress. But I think that is something that should be undertaken with a lot of seriousness because you can imagine the amount of jobs the data center would create for Kenyans. So it's something that I think if this government and successive government should ensure that it comes to pass. I know some of these things may take long because of the budgetary constraints and the monies involved, the negotiations, but there are projects that I think at some level should just be handed over to maybe the World Bank to undertake them, fund them fully, so that even if they will recoup their money back from it, they do. But we need that because that is one way of broadening the tax base in the country.
Yeah. Okay, we hope that comes to maturity because it's important. That's, of course, I think every Kenyan agrees, or even if they don't, then we have to make them agree because we have to fix our country together. Maybe as we come to an end, we were talking matters security, and now our country is filled with foreign military bases across. Now, recently we have France in Kenya. We have Batuk, and we know the stories that have come with Batuk. We have the US in Manda. Is this a good or a bad thing for us? And actually, I just want to understand both sides, the pros and cons.
Good. I want you to imagine where your home is as a police station here, a chief camp behind it, a military base somewhere. Are you secure or you are not secure? It could be.
It could be, yes.
You could be very secure. You could be very insecure.
Yeah.
Because if those installations become a target, then you essentially become a target.
Yeah.
But there are benefits and cons to it. Number one, onto the pros. Once you have those military bases across, we go back to the intelligence sharing, because those bases, people are not sleeping in them just for the sake of them being there. They are using them to monitor. You see even where they are, to monitor around possible enemies around, apart from training and all that. So, in my view, I think it is a good thing that Kenya has these bases, because they create there is enhanced security for Kenya in such an instance. But where now it becomes a threat is the situation like the ones we saw in Middle East, where now those installations by various governments becomes a target by another country.
Yeah.
Now, they are not targeting you as a country. They are targeting those bases, but those bases are in your soil. So essentially, you become also a target, which either way, it has its pros and cons. So all what matters is how then do we handle such situations moving forward? How then do we ensure that those bases that are in our country serve our interests as they serve the interest of the owners?
Okay. Good. I hope we have been thinking about that as a country better. But overall, do you feel the government, okay, now we of course, for now, we are talking about the government that is there today, which is President Ruto's government. Of course, depending if he still goes on or if someone else takes over. Does government oftentimes take care of its interests or personal interests on the diplomatic space? Oftentimes.
The government should and must always put the interest of the nation first. It shouldn't be an interest of an individual, because an individual will come and go. A state will remain there till it remains in perpetuity. Governments and individuals are two different things. Yeah, because how many presidents have we had? They're all gone. We will still have more, they will go. But Kenya will still just be Kenya. Government will just remain government. You leave a seat, someone comes, sits on it. I want to believe that everything that the government does, I want to believe, the term is believe, that they do it in the interest of the nation. Should anyone in government do something that is contrary to that, that person doesn't deserve that seat they sit on.
Do you know why I asked that question? Kenya has had complaints about the Ebola and even protests. And sadly, we have even killed our own citizens protesting against the establishment of the killing is unfortunate. Ebola base in, what is it called? Nanyuki Air Base.
The killing is unfortunate. The trigger-happy officers should, and I hope IPOA is doing its job. I think that's why the Constitution was really separated powers, that we have the police service, then we have IPOA. IPOA investigates, and you can see police officers now in court. Many of them are in court for being just trigger happy. Because how then do you explain that you just shot someone and killed, unless that person was a threat, direct threat to your life? So someone must tell the officers that irrespective of the order you may get from your immediate boss, when you go to the dock, that your immediate boss will not be there. It's you and you alone. So it's you and your family that will suffer the consequences. But onto Ebola thing.
Was it our interest or the US interest? Or Ruto's interest?
That thing should be our interest. And we should have a 360 dimension in how we look into that thing. Somewhere in January 2020, before COVID, there's a professor of science, Kenyan professor who lectures in South Africa. He's called Professor Majiwa. Warned Kenyans that, look, we are playing with fire. We do not have the necessary and the correct facility to handle serious viruses in this country. What we have cannot contain serious viruses when they break. just 2 months, nearly 2 months after he spoke, we had COVID. So the Ebola center, the quarantine center, you know, if you go online, you check U.S. agreement with Kenya on this biosecurity. It's a biosecurity agreement. It outlines, and it went to Parliament. MPs passed it. It outlines what it means to have a biosecurity agreement between Kenya and the US. That center, one big mistake that happened was failure to communicate at the right time. Because
again, failure to communicate has been constant.
Because where did Kenyans learn about this thing? From
an article
Reuters.
That was done by New York.
New York?
Yes.
New York Times?
Yes.
Reuters and BBC. So they learned about it from outside Kenya. But didn't Kenya know that this was going to happen? They knew. Did they communicate? No.
They would never.
Why didn't they communicate? So did they just want to do it in a clandestine way?
Probably, yes.
Which is very wrong. But you see, this particular project, what it meant is not just about Ebola. Today, as a country, we may not have the correct facility to contain serious outbreaks. As it is now, Uganda, DRC relies on KEMRI to test samples and tell them this. Of the 20 samples you've brought, 10 are positive, 10 are not positive. So some of those KEMRI guys have had to go to DRC to pitch tent there, to do some of the small tests there. Some of them are sent here to be done here. At this level, it's only Kenya in the region that has the capacity, the manpower, the resource to do that. But we can only do to the level of testing. Today, if Ebola breaks here in the country, and let's say, for example, you come from an area, let's say Taraka. In the Taraka area, there is Taraka level 4 or level 5. Then you are told someone with Ebola has been taken to Taraka hospital. Even if you had malaria or diarrhea, will you go to that hospital? Definitely you will not. But if we have isolated facilities where it is specifically for such incidences, would you have a problem? No. So, again, this is something that we saw, because it is not just building the facility. It's building, equipping, training. Because in 2015, 2016, thereabout, when we had the West Africa Ebola outbreak, do you know we had over 150 Kenyan medics go to West Africa? They stayed there for 1 full year. And they came back. No one died of Ebola. So these people, where do they practice some of they have experience? How do we put this knowledge to use? These are some of the people who would now be quickly assembled, again retrained, because it has been some time now, retrained, and then now they can handle such situations. Because it is not only Ebola that will come to us. Yeah. Around 2010, we had what we call SARS. SARS was H1N1, swine flu, or Mayangurue, that broke out in Asia. How then would we explain when we have another outbreak that may not have a cure, only need isolation and some medication so that you scale it down, and we don't have those isolation centers? And it was not only that one. There are many. I would ask Kenyans to be genuine with themselves and allow that thing be developed. Because once it is developed, whether Americans with Ebola are brought there or not, it remains a Kenyan facility with equipment, with the trained personnel. It will be to our benefit. It's not just for America. Such a facility, the only place where it is in the world is Germany.
Yeah.
One of the best is in Germany. I don't know if this would match the same in Germany, but at least the investment that was supposed to be put in it we can't be sure about any kind of outbreak tomorrow. I think we've taken serious matters into our hands that we lose focus many times.
But do you know why then we take those matters into our hands, as you have said?
No.
Where did we learn about it?
From abroad.
And so how are you supposed to take it serious?
Yes, and I again think that another mistake that happened was with Rubio. Rubio made a statement that could not sit well with Kenyans.
Yes.
And I want to believe that necessary agencies in government must have communicated back, because it was not right. It was, it made it look like Kenya is going to be a dump site, which was very wrong. That should not be the case anytime, because after all, Kenya was only acting as a holding bay treatment and then we release.
But
because, for the longest, Kenya has been the referral point for all medical cases within East and Central Africa for all international organizations.
Yeah.
Whether you are sick in Chad, in DRC, in Uganda, and the situation cannot be handled there, the next point of call is Kenya.
Yeah.
For all this long. So Kenya has been what I would call a medical hub, a refuge hub medically for people in this region. And it is also an anchor state when it comes to matters health. Yeah. Remember, this thing was even passed if you read the sessional paper number 1 of 2025 foreign policy document, Kenya is viewed and is stated there as a global health hub in the region. So meaning any situation in terms of medicine in the region, Kenya should be a point of reference.
Which is very important. But besides what Rubio said, which was unfortunate, as you said, I think it was also unfortunate for our own CS of health to tell us that we are not going to consult you. We're going to ahead to build. Because at the end of the day, as you said, it is this is something that's supposed to benefit the people eventually. And treating Kenyans as, you don't matter in this, I think for me also that was...
Yeah, I think that statement, it was unfortunate, but logically, I want to understand where it was coming from. Though I think he let emotions go ahead of his words, but logically, I want to understand where it was coming from. Where was Duale coming from? Today, if we have an outbreak may not wait for you to be consulted, for me to be consulted.
Which is true.
But
the question is, when was this agreement made? We're not talking about something...
2015.
That's what I'm saying. It's not an emergency that is happening now that we can't consult people or not even consult, tell people. Because if we have to wait for New York Times to write an article for us, wow, as Kenyans...
I think that is, again, where there are faults, we must point at them, that this is a fault. And those faults sometimes are so glaring that they make the government look so bad. Whereas there are things that could have been nipped in the bud early enough.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. I think, as you've said, as the government becomes very aggressive in our diplomacy out there, I think they need to be more aggressive in here. Because at the end of the day, this is where it's at.
Our territory, our sovereignty takes the day and matters a lot.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. Before I let you go, there's a question that was left by the previous guest here, who was Irongo Nyakera.
I watched him.
You watched?
Oh, yes.
Nice.
As I've always told you, I watch religiously.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you very much to all the community that watches and reaches out even when we meet in supermarkets and out there. So his question was, what's the one thing you'd want the next administration to change? Now that you're on matters diplomacy, perhaps you can look at it from that perspective.
Thank you. In fact, not even the next administration. What must be done as a matter of urgency in the space of diplomacy? There is what we call as the Foreign Service Act 2021. It's supposed to be amended so that it's in line, it's in sync with the with the sessional paper number 1 of 2025 foreign policy. This Foreign Service Act, as it is amended, we need to ensure that we have enough trained, skilled diplomats in this country. Enough trained, skilled diplomats in this country. How are we going to do this? We need to have the Foreign Service Academy must not just train people who are in service. Foreign Service Academy must now open its doors to universities and colleges to admit people from various universities, from various disciplines, because foreign service needs people from all disciplines. It's one ministry that needs nurses, needs teachers, needs engineers, needs all manner of disciplines. So open that academy for all, admit people, let them pay for a postgraduate diploma program for 2 years. Then from there, you can now transition them into foreign service. You know, once it's just like the Kenya
ASL.
School of Law. You are from a university, you've trained as a lawyer, but now they ensure that they bring the real practice of law in you. Forget the theories.
Yeah.
The real practice of law is now impacted in you so that when you go outside there, you are ready for the market. Many countries globally, when you go to Brazil, the Rio de Brancos, when you go to Foreign Service Academies of US in Georgetown University, when you go to China, when you go to India, these are some of the things that are done so that we have a pool of diplomats. They will not only serve Kenya. In fact, in America, what happened? When they began this program many years ago, it came to a point where those guys who had gone to the academy after the program, some of them could not even work for America. Institutions, global institutions used to come for them. So let us create guys who will go into other institutions and Kenya will be respected for that. The same way, if you go to the Ministry of Interior today, there is what they call as KIMS, Kenya Institute of Migration Studies. It is hosted by the University of Nairobi. Kenya Institute of Migration Studies is the only migration institute in the entire Great Lakes region. So I happen to have gone to that institution to study a postgraduate diploma in migration studies. It has students from Djibouti, from Eritrea, from Uganda, from the entire Great Lakes region. They come there, they pay fees. Some of them actually are sent by their governments. Many of students from outside Kenya are sent by their government. They are immigration officers. Maybe we get some immigration officers from Uganda and train them.
They will learn to do better. I love that. That's
Yes.
beautiful. Actually, I would be very happy to go to be one of the diplomats, to go through that such a
And you know, when you go there, you do not necessarily just go and work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
You will find spaces where you will work for institutions, yes.
Ah, beautiful. That's very interesting. Now I need you to leave a question for the next guests.
Now, my question will come from one of the statements by one of the senators in this country. Do we need to develop as a country and build shiny things, or do we need to adhere to the law and forget the development?
Very interesting question. But the next guest better be ready to give their perspective. But Gordon, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
It's always a good time to have people break down different things and also to open perspectives, because I believe Kenya is a well of knowledge across.
Oh, yes.
And it's only vital that we share it so that we do our civic education duty in whatever aspects we can. And it's been fun engage with you on this one.
Thank you very much.
I hope to see you on another one.
Anytime, any day.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that.
You know, now that somebody has decided to run the lies of the president, we need to paint real pictures, not because we work for the government, which I don't, but we just need to paint a real picture that if he went here, this is what he brought back home. How is it a lie? If this was promised, this has been delivered, this has not been delivered. How then can we work on what has not been delivered? ask not what your country has done for you,
but what
ask.
you can do.
Yes.
And also in 6 months, if the lies are also the lies, because they are, if you look at them, there is a reason for it. Maybe when he comes, we will have a chance to understand what
Maybe
he
one
thinks.
day you host the
And
president.
why he also says in 6 months, because for me, it's also very interesting. The magic 6 months. No, it's not subject for
Okay.
that is for the president to tell us. Thank you so much for
Thank you very
watching
much.
this episode. To you who's stayed till the end, we'll catch you on the next one.